Hello everyone, this is Afshan, a lecturer at Ahlabad High School and Junior College. Welcome back to my class. Today we are going to complete the fourth chapter of Unit 1 of Inter First Year Botany, and the name of our chapter was Plant Kingdom, and today we are going to learn the third part of it, that is related to pteridophytes. As we all know that we are already done with algae and bryophytes, now it's the time for the third part, that is pteridophytes. So coming to the pteridophytes, they include club mosses, horsetails, ferns, etc. And they are used for the medicinal purposes and as soil binders. So they are of multiple uses actually, and they are also frequently grown as ornamentals, and evolutionarily they are the first terrestrial plants to possess vascular bundles. So you have to remember this thing. And they are embryophytic, archegoniate and vascular cryptogams, and the pteridophytes are found in cool, damp, shady places, though some may flourish well in sandy soil conditions. And so this was the existence of the pteridophytes. Let us continue. I hope that you all remember that in bryophytes, the dominant phase in the life cycle is the gametophytic, that was haploid plant body, and however in pteridophytes the main plant body is a sporophyte. Which is differentiated into true roots, stems and leaves. These organs possess well differentiated vascular tissues, and the roots are adventitious, and the stem internally shows epidermis, cortex and stele. They all are present here, and the stele may be prostrate. That means that central core of xylem surrounded by phloem. Such kind of vascular bundles will be called as prostale, and or some may be siphon stele. It means that it will be medullated prostale actually, or it may be solin stele. It means that siphonostele with scattered leaf gaps, or it may be dictyostele. It means the dissected siphonosteles with overlapping leaf gaps, and the leaves in pteridophyta are small, that will be called as microphylls because of their smaller size, and example for that will be Selaginella, or it may be large, like that is what the reason they will be called as microphylls. Large will be called as macrophylls, and the example for this will be ferns. And coming to the sporophytes, it bears sporangia that are subtended by leaf-like appendages. They are not the leaves actually, they are just the leaf-like appendages, and that will be called as sporophylls. And the development of the sporangium may be leptosporangiate or eusporangiate. And on the other hand, the sporangia produces spores by meiosis in spore mother cells, and in majority of the pteridophytes, all these spores are of similar kind. Such plants are termed as homosporous because here all these spores are of same kind. Homo in the sense similar, we all know that, right? And genera like Selaginella and Salvinia, which produce two kinds of spores, macro or megaspores and microspores, are described as the heterosporous because of the existence of the two different kind of spores. And in some cases, the sporophylls may form distinct compact structures that will be called as strobili or cones. The cones are the main feature actually that is present in the pteridophytes, and the spores germinate to give rise to inconspicuous small but multicellular free living mostly photosynthetic thalloid gametophytes that will be called as prothalli, or you can call it as the prothallus. These gametophytes require cool, damp, shady places to grow as we have discussed earlier, and because of this specific requirement and the need for water for fertilization, the spread of living pteridophytes is limited because they require huge amount of water and restricted to narrow geographical regions. And the gametophytes bear male and female sex organs that will be called as antheridia and archegonia. respectively, and the sex organs are multicellular, jacketed and sessile. And in heterosporous plants, the megaspores and the microspores germinate and give rise to female and male gametophytes respectively, and water here is required for transfer of antherozoids and the male gametes released from the antheridia to the mouth of the archegonium. It requires huge amount of water for the transfer of the antherozoids that will be released from antheridia to the mouth of the archegonium. And this fusion of male gamete with the egg present in the archegonium results in the formation of zygote, and this is called as zooidogamous oogamy. The fusion of the male antheridium with the egg of the archegonium that will be resulting in the formation of a zygote will be termed as zooidogamous oogamy. And the female gametophyte in these plants are retained on the parent sporophyte for variable periods, and the development of zygote into young embryos takes place within the female gametophyte, and this event is a precursor to the seed habit, considered an important step in evolution. And the embryo thereafter produces a multicellular, well differentiated sporophyte, which is the dominant phase in the life cycle of pteridophyte. And one more thing that we need to remember about the pteridophytes is they are further classified into 4 subclasses. Namely, the first one is Coelopsida, and the second one is Lycopsida or Lycopsida you can say. Coming to this third subclass of the Pteridophyta, it is none other than the Sphenopsida, and the last one is Pteropsida. So that was all about our pteridophytes. Now it's the time to proceed towards the next topic, that is gymnosperms. So coming to the gymnosperms, the word gymnos here means naked, and sperma here indicates seeds. So altogether, gymnosperms can be called as the naked seeds. It means that without the seed coats. They are the plants in which the ovules are not enclosed by any ovary wall and remain exposed both before and after the fertilization. And the seeds that develop post fertilization are not covered, that is are naked, as I have told you. And gymnosperms are embryophytic, tracheophytic, archegoniate and phanerogams. We have already discussed that these comes under the category of phanerogams but not the cryptogams, and they include medium sized trees or tall trees and shrubs. And one of the gymnosperms, the giant redwood tree, is one of the tallest tree species. Coming to the roots of the gymnosperms, they are generally tap roots, and roots in some genera have fungal association in the form of mycorrhizae. That example you can take as Pinus, and while in some others like Cycas, small specialized roots that will be called as coralloid roots are associated with the nitrogen fixing cyanobacteria that will be Nostoc and Anabaena normally, and the stems are unbranched. Example you can take as the Cycas, and it may be branched, for example Pinus, and the leaves, they may also be simple or compound. In Cycas, the pinnate leaves persist for a few years, and the leaves in gymnosperms are well adapted to withstand extreme of temperatures and humidity and wind. In conifers, the needle-like leaves reduce the surface area, and their thick cuticle and sunken stomata also helps to reduce water loss. Coming to the anatomy of the gymnosperms, anatomically, the stem here shows eustele, and the vascular bundles are conjoint, collateral and open type. And here vessels are generally absent in xylem and companion cells are absent in phloem, and secondary growth occurs in the stems and roots. Secondary growth is also there because they are the used trees, and the gymnosperms are heterosporous. They produce haploid microspores and megaspores. That is what the reason they can be termed as the heterosporous ones, and the two kinds of spores are produced within the sporangia that are borne on sporophylls, which are arranged spirally along an axis to form compact strobili or cones. The strobilus bearing microsporophylls and microsporangia are called as microsporangiate or male strobili. Then what will happen? The microspores that were present, no, they will be developing into a male gametophytic generations, which is highly reduced and is confined to only a limited number of cells, and this reduced gametophyte is called as pollen grain. It means that the pollen grain here is nothing but the reduced gametophytes, and the development of the pollen grains takes place within the microsporangia, and the cones bearing megasporophylls with ovules or integumented megasporangia are called as macrosporangiate or female strobili, and the microsporophylls or megasporophylls may be born on the same tree or on different trees. The example for same trees can be the pinus, and the example for the different can be taken as the cycas. The megaspore mother cell is differentiated from one of the cells of the nucellus, and the nucellus is protected by the envelopes or integuments, and the composite structure is called as an ovule, and the megaspore mother cell divides meiotically to form 4 megaspores. One of the megaspores enclosed within the megasporangium develops into a multicellular female gametophyte that bears 2 or more archegonia or female sex organs, and the multicellular female gametophyte is retained within megasporangium and is also called as endosperm. And one more thing that you need to remember about the gymnosperms is they, unlike the bryophytes and pteridophytes, actually the male and female gametophytes do not have an independent free living existence. They are not free living, and they remain within the sporangia retained on the sporophytes, and the pollen grain is released from the microsporangium, and the pollination here is direct and anemophilous, and they are carried by air currents and come in contact with the opening of the ovules born on the megasporophylls. Then the pollen tube that is carrying the male gametes grows towards the archegonia in the ovules and discharges the contents near the mouth of the archegonia, and this can be termed as siphonogamous oogamy. In the pteridophytes, it was zoodogamous, right? Here it is siphonogamous oogamy. If we proceed further, we can see that gymnosperms are again divided into 3 classes, and they can be called as Psychodopsida. The second one is the Coniferopsida, and the last class is the Cnitopsida. Examples here you can take as the cycas in the Psychodopsida. Coming to the Coniferopsida, the example can be taken as the pinus, and here you can take the example as the Cnitum. So that was all about the gymnosperms. Now let us move forward towards our next class, that is angiosperms. Unlike the gymnosperms where the ovules are naked, in the angiosperms that are commonly called as flowering plants, the ovules are present inside the ovary of the gynoecium, and the pollen grains and ovules are developed in the specialized structures that will be called as flowers. That is what the reason they are termed as the flowering plants. And in angiosperms, the seeds are enclosed in fruits. They are not the naked one. And the angiosperms are embryophytic, non-archegoniate, vascular, and fruit breeding phanerogams. And the angiosperms are an exceptionally large group of plants occurring in wide range of habitats. And the size of the angiosperms may differ from one to the other. They may be very tiny, almost microscopic. For the example is Wolffia to tall trees of eucalyptus, and that will be ranging about 100 meters. And they provide us with food, fodder, fuel, medicines, and several other commercially important products to meet our day-to-day life. So they are of highly commercial use, and the root system of these plants is taproot or adventitious type. In angiosperms, the vessels of the xylem and the companion cells of the phloem are present, and they are the main conducting elements actually, and they develop flowers with usually conspicuous perianth. Here the male sex organs will be the stamens, Each stamen consists of a slender filament with an anther at the tip. So each stamen consists of a filament and an anther. And in the anthers, microspore mother cells undergo meiosis and produce pollen grains. And the female sex organ in a flower is pistil or the carpel. Pistil consists of an ovary enclosing onto many ovules. A megaspore mother cell undergoes meiosis and produces 4 megaspores. Within the ovule, 4 megaspores will be produced. Usually only one megaspore develops into a highly reduced female gametophyte that will be called as embryo sac. And each of the cells of an embryo sac is haploid. Each embryo sac has 3-celled egg apparatus comprising 1 egg cell with 2 synergids, 3 antipodal cells and 2 polar nuclei. So as I have told you, each embryo sac will be consisting of the 3-celled egg apparatus, from which one will be the egg cell and the other 2 will be the synergids, and it consists of a centrally located polar nuclei actually. So there will be generally 2 polar nuclei, and coming to the terminal point, it consists of 3 antipodal cells. The pollen grains after dispersal from the anther are carried by wind. That is what the reason it will be called as anemophily, or water, and that can be called as hydrophily, or various other biotic agencies like animals, that can be termed as the zoophily, to the stigma of the pistil. This is called as pollination. The pollination may take place with the help of anemophily, hydrophily or zoophily. And unlike in gymnosperms, here the transfer of pollen to the ovule in the ovary is not direct and hence called as indirect pollination. The pollen grains germinate on the stigma and the resulting pollen tubes grow through the tissues of stigma and style and reach the ovule, and the pollen tubes enter the embryo sac where 2 male gametes are discharged. One of the male gametes fuses with the egg cell to form a zygote, and what will happen, one of the male gamete will go and fuses with the egg cell and the resultant will be the zygote, and this condition will be called as syngamy, and the other male gamete fuses with the diploid secondary nucleus to produce the triploid primary endosperm nucleus, that can be termed as pen. Pen is nothing but primary endosperm nucleus, and it will be generally triploid, and this whole procedure will be commonly called as triple fusion because of the involvement of the 2 fusions. This event is termed as double fertilization also. So this fertilization will be given 2 names, that is, the first one will be called as the triple fusion, where it is forming a triploid endosperm nucleus, and the second name that is given to this is the double fertilization because of the occurrence of the 2 fusions. So this double fertilization can be only seen in angiosperms. So it is an unique event, we can say, and the fertilization is siphonogamous oogamy, and the zygote develops into an embryo with 1 or 2 cotyledons, and the pen, that is primary endosperm nucleus, develops into endosperm which provides nourishment to the developing embryo. The use of this pen is to provide nourishment to the embryo. And the synergids and the antipodals degenerate after fertilization. These synergids and these antipodals, they degenerate after the whole process of fertilization, and during these events the ovules develop into seeds and the ovaries develop into the fruit, and based on the number of cotyledon in the seed, angiosperms are divided into 2 classes. So the first one out of this is dicotyledonous, and the second will be the monocotyledonous. So the name itself is showing that monocotyledons refers to the one having 1 cotyledon in their seeds, and coming to the dicotyledons, they are having 2 cotyledons in their seeds. So that was all about our chapter, where we have already completed learning algae, bryophytes, pteridophytes, gymnosperms, and the last was the angiosperms. I hope you all have understood the chapter very well. That was the end of our first unit. Let us meet again in our next class with second unit. Thank you.